All right, good Saturday morning, everybody. It's time for another episode of Hobby Hotline. I believe this is 345. You get into the 300s, and sometimes I'm sure we skipped one somewhere down the line, Victor and Lauren. But speaking of Victor and Lauren, that they are our co-hosts today. Victor, True Rookies, and Lauren collects, and we got a variety of topics. Not huge news. The news cycle sort of slowed down. Speaking of that, I want to make a quick announcement. I know I posted it on social media, on the Hobby Hotline social media. We'll have a show next week. That will be the last one in May. And then starting in June, as Lauren and Victor know, we're going to go to the first and third Saturdays of each month. So generally, there'll be two shows a month. It'll keep the show fresh, as the news cycle sort of normalizes, if you will. It'll keep our hosts fresh, and it's busy season. There is no off season in the hobby, as they say. So we're always busy, right? Where everyone here creates their own content as well. So I'm, true full transparency, it's sometimes hard to get a show together every week. Especially we kind of scramble around, life happens, right? Things come up, someone who is scheduled, unfortunately something happens and they can't make their appearance. And so I think going to first and third Saturdays will keep everyone fresh, make scheduling kind of easier. You won't see the same faces all the time as well on the the consumer end of things, and that sort of thing. So that will be starting in June. So again, a big story breaks. We've done it before on this show, as Victor and Lauren know.
Mm-hmm.
We can do a special episode where we just the alarm goes off and we say man the battle stations type of things. We haven't really had a story like that recently, but you never know what can break. So let's enough of the house cleaning. Victor, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Glad to be on with you. Lauren, same thing. How's things in Laurenville, as I like to say?
Good. I'm home after a long road trip, so I'm very happy about that. Happy to be back on Hobby Hotline.
Yep, we'll get some good mornings before we dive right in there. Mad City Brew, Ruben, all glasses team. And sometimes I wear them, and sometimes I don't. And I've been trying to wear my glasses more. My wife's been getting on my case in school for my real job. It's getting a little harder to see the boards, so I've started wearing them.
You look 2% more intelligent there, John.
Yeah, I'll take every percentage I can get, Victor. I'm looking to get to about 50% more, but you got to get to 2 before you can get to 50. Abel in Vegas, who's here a lot, we appreciate it. Good morning. Alan Forrest says hi, Victor. Stukes, another one of our regulars. Good morning from Lake Texoma. Philly Joe, good morning, gang. Question already. Abel says, Lauren, how is the WNBA collection coming along?
I don't think I have anything new from WNBA. We've been doing tennis and WWE because tennis had the new product come out, and I'm big into Coco. I'll show this real quick just because WNBA, we're back this week. I have this cool card. I've had it for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, I
That's
love
the
this
one right there.
That's all right. That card's okay.
It's all right. It does okay. Yeah. But yeah, I love that card. I think I don't know when my husband got it for me, but it's on my desk so I can stare at it anytime I'm here.
All right, folks. We're gonna get into our first topic. These are not necessarily in order of where they rank necessarily, but this kind of story broke, guys. That let me get the banner up here. Goldin Auctions is partnering with a scanning authentication company. Yeah, that's a real thing. Let me put the graphic up here so we get the name right. Right. The name of the company is Industrial Inspection Consulting LLC. I think they're fairly new. The agreement was actually, as you see the date there on the screen, January 24th, but they just announced it. I'm sure they were crossing some T's and dotting some I's before they really went public with it. And what this will do is, we know when it comes to wax products, right? Things can be opened, resealed, things can be taken out, replaced. Heck, we've seen, the BBCE kind of certified a case of Pokemon that had GI Joe packs in it. I'm sure they really enjoy me bringing that up again. But listen, it happened. This company is going to assure that any wax product. I don't know if they're going to do it with every wax products, but I'm sure with certain ones, Goldin's going to have this company CAT scan. They also use X-ray technology. It's a different kind of X-ray that doesn't damage product. If you get an X-ray as a human in a medical place, X-rays are actually not very good for you. Sometimes they're a necessity to find out what's going on. But if you have a lot of X-rays, it's radiation. The X-rays that this company used, I found out, whatever they are. I'm not an engineer, but they're a different type that doesn't ruin the integrity of what is being scanned or hit with the X-rays. So this is to assure that any kind of wax products that go on Goldin are what they say they are and claim to be. And as we all know, the three of us here and those of you out there, we know that wax products, right, especially when you get into vintage and older, and it doesn't even have to be vintage, even recent Pokemon boxes can be very expensive. And when the bidding is going to go high, if you're a bidder, you want to know, that what you're bidding on is the genuine McCoy and the real McCoy. I'm not a big fan of CAT scanning. This story broke earlier in this year that people were having, like National Treasures boxes and exquisite boxes, CAT scan to see the hits inside it, to whether it's to open it or scam the general public who are buying into a break or what have you, so that they don't get it. So I'm not a fan of CAT scanning in for those purposes. But if it's done this way, which is the way it's being proposed to ensure that a product is legit, it is what it says it is. I'm kind of on the other side of the aisle here, Victor and Lauren. So on one hand, I don't like it, but if it's used in this sort of fashion, I'm not opposed to it. Kind of whoever wants to start, where do you guys fall in on this one?
I'm going to say, I thought they also, earlier this week, there was an announcement released about them teaming up with a company called X-Ray Authority. Now, I don't know if that's a knockoff of this one or they partnered with yet another different company. But needless to say, Goldin is really getting in on this genre of the hobby. Kind of concerning to me in several fronts. And they offer like different levels of service, and some of them, yes, are for verifying that is the product that's inside those packs, and I'm okay with that. But if you want to up the service level, you can now, for an extra charge, we can give you a more stronger scan, and you can see if you have the hit or a particular card in the box. And that's where I have a lot of concern. I don't know about the layers of once that box has been scanned, is there going to be a data sheet that comes along with it? I don't know. Just my spidey senses are tingling, I guess is the best way I can put it. And then just, this has been out now for several months, and I still haven't heard anything about what is Fanatics going to do about this issue. I know there's been ideas out there with wrappers, some kind of sticker that'll change colors if it's scanned. We have all these ideas out here, but I haven't heard anything from Fanatics. And I guess my challenge to Fanatics is that the hobby needs some clarity here as to number one, how does Fanatics feel about it, and what kind of steps are they gonna take to protect the hobby? And I think they've been a little silent in this area, and I think it's time for them to speak up on this. And that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, real quick before we get to Lauren, I was about to say this, but put Orlando's comment up here.
Okay.
X-Ray, I think it's a subdivision of the same company. So if
Okay.
you go to Industrial's website, you'll see CAT scanning and you'll see the X-Ray division. So I think it's one and the same company. They just sort of separate them into two divisions. So I think it's the same agreement, just different divisions of the same company. So just clarification there. It's a good question, Victor. Is it two deals? Is it one deal? I think it's one deal with a company that does both and kind of puts them under two brands.
Yeah, and lastly, I would say I think this is a prime opportunity for the content creators out there who are privileged enough to interview Fanatics. I would say, instead of the softball questions, let's maybe ask them this question, because most of us don't have access to them, but some of us do out there. And I would really hope that this question gets brought up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Lauren, chime in here.
Yeah, I was trying to find a little bit more information about it too, because I know this was something that was a big hot story months ago. And I was watching a video from, I believe it was Neo Cards on YouTube, and he was discussing it. And he brought up some points that I was concerned about. Well, first of all, he said that there would be like a registry. They'd put a sticker on it to say this is like with PSA, numbers. You could look it up here. This is when it was scanned. It doesn't tell you anything about what's in it. It just tells you, yes, this was scanned, which is great. That gives you reassurance. It doesn't send a report to whoever submitted it, whatever, so you don't know the contents. However, whoever scanned it within that company, that knowledge is there. And, could they, and, we like to think that people have, the ethics to, kind of keep that stuff on lock. But people are people. Money flows in the hobby, and it changes, it sways people sometimes. And so that, that's a concern, I think. And he raised that, and I also had that concern. I think, it's one of those things that it just depends on like what you're using it for, I guess. If you're using it to, verify that it's not GI Joe cards, that's great. But if you're using it to make sure that you've got a hit that's, 25, 30, 50 years old, that's a little different. That kind of muddies the waters, because you can take advantage of people really easily that way.
Mhm.
So I like to err on the side of like optimism with the hobby, but I'm also not naive enough to think that that's the best practice. So it's interesting. I agree with Victor. We have to talk to somebody, has to get a public statement from the companies that manufacture the products that we purchase, because they do have to find a solution, even if the solution is we don't have one and we're not going to do anything about it. We need an answer of some sort, I think. Because maybe they don't, I'm sure that there is a way, but maybe they don't have a way, or maybe they don't find it feasible, or maybe they just want to wash their hands of that. That's not our business. Once we put it out there, it's not ours anymore. But I do think that, the the big production companies, Tops, and Panini. I know Tops has more of the licensing now, but Panini also, that could be a really good way to to curry some favor with the hobby and say we are taking this seriously. We're going to look into what we can do. So,
Yep.
Yeah, piggybacking off both of what you said, right? I don't want this, not that they care what I want or don't want, but I don't want this, like Lauren said, to be like, let's see what's inside this before it even goes to market or auction or sale, right? I think the beauty, we've all opened packs and boxes before, right? The beauty is that anticipation. We don't know what we're going to pull or hit or open. And I don't always, I don't want to know. And that really sort of affects the integrity. The way I've read the press release and going to the website, is it's just to ensure what's supposed to be in the box is in the box. They're not going to say, hey, there's a one of one logo man in this box, and so I don't think it will be used for that purposes, which is kind of what I said when I introed this topic. I don't want to see it used for bad. It's like superhero powers, right? I want to see it be. If we're going to use them, let's use it for good and not the evil side. I just kind of segued that into Victor's Spidey senses, so I figured we'd talk about superpower. But if it's used in the right fashion, so someone doesn't spend 5 figures, 6 figures on a box only to get it and find out later on that it didn't contain what they bid or purchased it for originally, right? But I don't want it to be, hey, there's a triple logo man 101. Let the be at that point open the box and just sell the card, right? And bid on the card. So I think if it's used in the right form and fashion, I'm not against it. I think there's going to be a letter of they do letter LOA. So this company does letter of authenticity when they scan or X-ray a product. So that will be kind of accompanying the item to the winning bidder or purchaser of the product. So for them, if they were in turn going to flip it, resell it, move it down the line to another person for sale, that LOA goes along with it. So that's
But is there going to be anything on the box that says?
That I don't know, Victor. It's a good question.
I think they said that. Sorry, in the video they said that it would be like a little sticker, like on if you get I mean, I think they do this at like the national. Excuse me, like when you get an autograph, you can pay to have it authenticated, and it's just like a little oval sticker. So I think they said that it'll be something like that with like a serial number, so that you can go and look on the registry and see when it was submitted and like just very basic details. I think that other side where it's like we can do a full scan and tell you what's in it, that's like a private option. That's not what Goldin is doing, from my understanding. But yeah, the little sticker is supposed to be like the ID that says this was done. You can go look it up. But can stickers be removed? Yes,
Right.
And I'm sure like JSA, it's similar to them. The sticker will match the LOA, so you got to have sort of both got to be correct. Couple funny comments I want to get here. After scanning cards, does it turn those cards into variation? Glow in the dark. Stuke says you can carry the Goldin scan around like new parents with ultrasound, staying on the superhero. Pack authentication is a button click away from pack searches. Well, the pack authentication sort of already being done. Like I have packs that are graded by PSA or BBCE, so that's already happening. Royals 417 says they will use it to make them more money, regardless of whether it's good for the hobby. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste their time or money for sure, right? And no doubt. Now, Ruben says, I wonder if BBCE will incorporate this into what they do. I mean, they have to look into it. It's especially, I brought up the example of the egg on the face moment for them. I'm sure they don't want to see that happen again. And it says, so if Goldin sees, this is from Steven Sports MD, so if Goldin sees a triple logo card, they can pull the box from the auction, open and just sell the card. I'm hoping we talked about that, Lauren and Victor. That's what I hope doesn't happen, right? I think this industrial company should just certify that, this is what it is, without telling Goldin or anyone else, for that matter, hey, we also saw this in there. Their job is just to say, hey, this is a original box of the first series Pokemon ever, and leave it at that. Put their sticker, the LOA. There shouldn't be any kind of communication as to what's contained within, right? And I hope that doesn't happen. I'm assuming that's not how it's go, because at that point, just open, don't even just open it. But again, they shouldn't do that if they already know the 101s. That's where integrity comes into play. So Mookie has a question. He says, will Goldin provide a full video recording of the scan that would be useful and engender trust? That's a good point, but does that, if they do that, does that video show what's inside the box ahead of time? So this is where the dilemma is,
Yeah.
right?
And
Do we want to just know that the product's legit, genuine, and what it's supposed to be, or do we want to take it to that next level? I mean, if the boxes doesn't have a bunch of great hits, it's obviously going to affect what Goldin will get in an auction, right? If
yeah,
you know you're bidding on a box that has a 1-on-1 triple logo, man, and you know you're bidding on a box that doesn't, the one that you know has it is going to bring more money. That's just the way. That's just the nature of the beast. So I rather not know, or I don't think they should know what's in there at that point. I think it should just be certified that what it's supposed to be, it is. And can you do that? If you can do that in a video without giving away the contents within, then I'm all for the video. But if the video itself kind of lets the cat out of the bag to what's contained hit-wise in the box, then I'm sort of not for that. So that's, two sides of the aisle there.
I just think if it's to verify a product that is 20 years old, as opposed to a product that was just released last week, I mean, what are we really? Why do we need that level of service? You know what I mean? There should be some parameters behind what actually gets scanned and what doesn't. And okay, so you want to verify the box because you want to sit on the box. That's great. Well, what about the private side? There's that private scan that is only for you guys only because you paid the upcharge.
Yeah, that's what's going on now. A
Where's
company
the
in Connecticut.
accountability on that side of things? And how is the hobby? Because I get a feeling that whatever, if the box doesn't reveal any hits in the scan, it's going to go right to the secondary market. And how is that healthy for the hobby? Somebody explain it to me like I'm a 2-year-old, because we have to see this. This is just, we're opening the door for shenanigans, and that's the last thing this hobby needs is more shenanigans.
Yeah. Orlando is saying that to see the hits, you'd have to scan an individual pack. Again, I don't know. These technologies are getting even better. So, Stephen MD says the video can be available after you purchase it. But even with that one, Stephen, so I buy the box, then I get the scan, and let's say now I know what's in it. And so I have a choice. If I think there's something huge in here, I can rip open the box, pull that 1-on-1 logo. I keep, that's a big card, pull the logo, man, and then resell that. Or I know that there's not a crazy big hit in it, and I just sell it knowing that to someone else and kind of maybe get out of a potential loss situation or not a big hit situation. So I think like Victor says, if we can just authenticate that what it is being sold as is legit and authentic, that's all that we really should need to know at that point. Because if you know more than that, it's going to what already is going on, where you can pay this Connecticut company $75 to scan your box and see what cards are in it before you even rip the cellophane off. And so I've tried to, I don't want to see just a higher end version of that scenario. And going back to something Victor said earlier, right? The onus is on these card manufacturers too to make it a little less counterfeitable or tamper proof, or not to be able to see hits without opening the box. Now, it's easy for us in our desk chairs to say, hey, Fanatics, hey, Panini, hey, Upper Deck, hey, whatever card, like fix this or make it tougher. What's that going to do? Cost them more money, right? They're not looking to spend more money. They're looking to make it. But I agree with Victor. I would love to see the companies take some, accountability, responsibility, and make, it harder to tell what's in the box without opening it, right? I mean, anyone who buys wax or opens wax wants to feel assured that they got as fair a shot as anybody to pull the best cards that are in the product without
Exactly.
feeling like this has already been, there's already something funny about this, and I'm probably not going to get this, right? So again, it's how it's used, right? It's like any kind of power you wield. It's, are you using it for good intentions, or is it used for bad? Back even in my store days, right? People would come in the store and they tell me, yeah, the other store down the road, I know they weigh in packs, or they're, back then you could tell it was the third pack down had this insert card, and I come here because I know you don't do that, right? So it's that integrity of what you're going to do with the power you might know or have, as ambulance goes by my house there. So, all right, any kind of, we want to kind of close this out. Any kind of last
I don't. Yeah,
words?
let's move on.
Yeah.
All right,
Good.
let's go to our next one. Victor, you brought this up. I know about, like, this, Panini 2024 QC issues. I put 2024. There's issues before, and it's not just 2024, but they've become more, let's say, prevalent, if you will, as their licensing sort of comes down the final tracks here. This was something Victor proposed, brought to the table. So I'm gonna let him lead off, and then I'll weigh in. So go ahead.
And I don't want to take total credit for it. This topic caught my attention from a video that Neo Cards and Comics did, and he referenced the website GemRate, and he was dissecting basically the QC issues that are apparent with 2024 product, more particularly in football and the WNBA side of things as well, and the numbers, I guess, when you compare year over year, when you compare GemRate numbers, you start to see a drastic dip in 2024 product. And I guess it's just more of a PSA announcement to the hobby. Be careful. Me, as a base rookie card collector, I have a stack of Caitlin's ready to go in for grading, but I'm being cautious now. Now with all this new information coming out, I'm taking a closer, harder look at these cards to see if they are worthy of getting graded. But at the same time, if that's the case, I don't know what's wrong with a 9. There's nothing wrong with a 9 if it's for PC, and that's what I'm about. So as far as needing a 10 for resale value, that's not my wheelhouse. But for some, it may, and that's how come I bring it up more as a PSA. You look at, I guess, Jaden Daniels, the base Prism. It's been graded just over 9,000 times, and it's got a 35% gem rate on that. Typically, that's in the 60% range for that product. The silver has a 12% gem rate, which is extremely low as well. For the Caitlin Clark Prism rookie card, it is at a 10% gem rate, which is extremely low.
That's surprising me. That's one. Yeah. Just think about that. That's 1 out of every 10 subbed. That is, but
it could be because of the new criteria that PSA has kind of.
That's what I was going to ask you. If maybe like it wasn't. I mean, I'm sure there's quality control, but if maybe the standards by the graders might have shifted a little bit. I was curious if maybe that might be a factor too.
Yeah, and I think because like what kind of confuses me is that we've known that typically when there is like a print issue or a print defect, the company will notify PSA, say, hey, this is kind of the issue, all of these, and just be, and PSA has typically been more lenient. All right, that's you're bad, and we'll grade it as such. But now I don't think that's happening anymore. And then what does that say? Is it an issue with Panini? Just like this is our last year, we don't care. I guess we can go down that.
I was going to ask you that, Victor. You think that's I mean, it's your opinion, right? We're all speculating here where no one knows for certainty, but you think that's a factor into some of these numbers that Panini sort of mailing it in? It's like, like, hey, your job's laying you off in a month. Like, hey, we're closing in a month. And like, what are your employees gonna like give you? Like, hey, this is my last month. I'm out
Yeah.
of work. I gotta get another job. I gotta figure this out. Like,
I'm
that's
like
on your
Lauren.
mind. You're not like, hey, I'm gonna be the best employee for this last 30 days. Maybe they'll change their
I
mind.
hear you. I hear you.
So yeah, I wondered about that. Like, hey, we're gonna lose this, but it's if that's the case, it's a bad look if you ever want to get the license back. If people figure out, that's how you do business, right? On
Right.
that level. So, but listen, this is a 20-year deal that Fanatics has, so Panini knows that, and they're like, the earliest we'll probably see this again, if we get it again, is 20 years. So, who cares? Or I hope they're not thinking that, but we don't know. We can only guess, right?
Yeah.
Lauren, your thoughts here on some of this stuff. And there's a comment here that it's up there. I think Alan said about he's buying Topps Heritage singles, and a lot of them are off center. So this is not QC's always been sort of a concern in the hobby. I've opened current packs and pulled stuff, and I'm like, that's horrible. Look at that. Whether it's a corner that's dinged, centering, miscut, it occurs on all companies. But in this case, we're using, like Victor pointed out, data from grading and low numbers on tens to not tens, and it's something we got to talk about. So, Lauren, what say you?
Well, I think that's interesting what Victor said about because I was wondering, like, how can we quantify it? And that's a really interesting way to quantify it is the grading. That's a really interesting way to look at it. There are other variables like we've already discussed, but I think that's an interesting way to kind of like take a closer look. I know I talked about it on the show. I don't know, it's been a couple months probably when they had the NFL cards come out and the downtown cards were like very clearly AI. That's the quality control I'm kind of more concerned about because they were sloppy designs. And that's something that I know somebody said in the chat that like printing is not really within Panini's control. And like Victor said, you can notify the grading companies, hey, this is a flaw that's across the board on all these cards. Take that into account. But design wise, they do have control over that. They have ultimate control over that and decision making. And that was the biggest sign to me that I think I said this, so I'm probably just repeating myself, that Panini was, in that regard, in that instance, going out with a whimper instead of a bang with the NFL license. That's going to be the last thought that people have about, NFL under Panini is, these wonky cities and stadiums that like don't make sense. There's this weird um, that's more of the quality control that I think I think hand in hand, both of those things, the grading and the design and maybe other things, but the main thing is the design that concern me. I think those things all going hand in hand. It does, it's a bummer. I'll just say that because I like Panini. I love the products that they put out. Um, I don't know. I would, and they have the WNBA license. They seem to have a pretty firm hold on that right now. So like, if they want to put all their eggs in that basket, that's great. But like, keep it consistent. I feel like Upper Deck, they lost the license, and it seems like with what they had, they still made a really high quality product, with like Marvel and things over the last, decade or 2 decades. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to look at both, the quantifiable way that like the quality control is a concern, and then also like your gut instinct of like this doesn't look right, this doesn't feel right, this isn't like what I'm used to. Um, so yeah, I think it's worth discussing too because they I think we need to support these companies, which we know they're in it to make money and like they're producing a product and we're the consumer, but like the feedback loop seems to be a little bit off in that there is so much coming back at them, like some of it that may be legitimate is not being heard. And yeah, I don't know. I that's where I'm going, I guess.
All right,
Well
a couple
said.
couple comments that are kind of pertinent. Abel in Vegas says ultra modern collectors only want tens. That is why folks are upset. They're printing too much. Manufacturers don't ultimately care of QC. Let me tell you something. As someone who's a bulk subber for SGC, who subs cards of his own, along with the others in the bulk sub, when I sub a modern card, I'm looking for nines or 10. But that comment from Abel is generally right on the money. Most people, when I give people their cards back and they get a nine, they're sort of disappointed. And I get it, right? You assume a 2024, 2025 card should be a 10 out of the pack. Unfortunately, we all know that's not always the case. I kind of shoot for nines and up at that point. Obviously, if you give me a choice between a 9 or 10, you know what I'm going to say. Great point by Michael here. Printing is outside Panini control. So yeah, most people know the printing companies they use are not on site. This is.
Hold on a second. I have we use outside vendors where I work in my industry. Okay.
Yeah.
And if that outside vendor is giving us a product that is not up to par, we're going to immediately stop the presses and say time out here. I find it really hard to believe that Panini doesn't have some kind of a supervisor or some type of a manager in that plant while things are being printed. Mm-hmm. And I say they should, if they don't have control, they should have eyeballs on the process to make sure that QC is up to par.
I agree, Victor. There should be sort of someone that's they're part of Panini's company, but they're in-house. Maybe have a small office in there and just kind of responsible for making sure everything is going okay and going well, like you said. And if something isn't, like shut it down, let's fix this, let's get this right type of thing. What I ultimately like to see is companies that produce cards do that in house. I know that's a financial factor there. You got to buy all the equipment. Now you got to even hire more people that you got to put health insurance on. And I get the reason why it's easier just to pay another company to print your product. But like you said, Victor, it's a great point. You have someone on site, an on-site supervisor to say, hey, everything looks good here. This product's going to press. Everything's good, so I don't think it's an excuse. I think it's used as an excuse, but like you said, Victor, I don't think it's a good one. Foul ball says, as a collector, I don't care about gem rate. Yeah, obviously, if you don't grade, but as a collector, you should still, whether you're grading or not, you should still care about quality control. When you open a pack or a box, or you buy, even if you don't open a box, but if you're buying, especially something recent or new, what shape that is.
It's not 1988 anymore. Computers and printers are extremely sophisticated. Let's somebody has to care is I think what it comes down to.
Yeah, if you as an individual don't care, that's okay. That's great. As you as an individual collector, as an ecosystem, somebody has to care. And there are a lot of us that do. So, it's okay if as an individual collector, you're kind of indifferent to it, you don't care, whatever. But as a living, breathing ecosystem that feeds off of a bunch of different, actions and participants, it does matter. It does. We whether you like it or not, it does.
Yeah. Michael says, my opinion, Panini's left a lot of money on the table. Where's WNBA?
This is facts
flawless
right here, 100%. Lauren, talk to me here. What do you?
I honestly, I don't know, because I haven't really been paying much attention to I'm a real big Prism person, so that's what I'm looking for. I've been asking about WNBA Prism for every year, all year long. I don't really, other than that, I'm kind of like, flawless is not something that I personally like. I love watching people open it. I love seeing what people get out of it. I don't usually put my own money down
you don't want to sell your house and buy a couple boxes of flawless?
Yeah, that's I love it. I think it would be great. They should have it, but also because I'm not personally consuming it directly, I haven't been paying too much attention to it. That would be I think they should, especially while the iron's hot, and we're back. Like WNBA is back, and it's dominating the news cycle, and they.
We can make an argument, Lauren and Victor, that the WNBA might be at its peak that it ever might be. We don't know the future. We can't predict the future, but it is red hot. It's sometimes the lead story on Sports Center. Like it's a huge deal. And so if that's going to be your baby now as Panini, right? That's going to, once the licensing fully changes hand, you want to do the best you can with your what's going to be your flagship product, your flagship sport.
Best product and best license. Miriam, let's go.
Now they can still do it. Like I don't know how long is their do I don't know this, so I'm asking you or anyone in chat. How long is their license with the WNBA? Is it multi-year? Yeah, I'm assuming it's not 1 year. It's going to be.
It's a while, I think.
Yeah, so maybe it's eventually, but again, why not already? But maybe they're going to, it's going to happen. It's not if, it might be just a when question. So
I've often had this thought that Ziggy brought up, but I'm in Indiana. I live in Indiana, and there is some serious Indiana fever going on with the Indiana fever. But I was shocked that we only had really 5 SKUs for the WNBA this year, and I'm like, what a missed opportunity. The only logical thing that I can think of is that contractually, that's all they were allowed to print up, because this would have been a golden egg for them to come out with 20, 30 different types of products like they do with the NBA.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, maybe they're figuring it out, and like you said, like maybe they had like established, processes with the printing and stuff, and the demand is far exceeding what they had planned for. But I will say they also seem to be kind of going all in on women's sports, in that I believe, which I don't follow soccer a lot, but I believe soccer, they've been trying to really kind of up that, and then Unrivaled, which was the 3-on-3 league that they had in the WNBA offseason, which Caitlin Clark was not a part of, which I know is a big draw for a lot of people. But for people who, love players other than Caitlin Clark, and Asia Wilson also wasn't there, they've alluded to a relationship between Unrivaled and Panini. They have not, as far as I know, and I've been really trying to keep on top of it because I want to know immediately. They haven't said like what exactly it's going to be, but they've alluded to some kind of marriage between the two, and so that product will also be coming out too. Which whatever brand product, Prism or Hoops or whatever, but it does seem like they're going to really kind of focus on that, which is for Panini, losing NFL and NBA and stuff, that was a big hit, and it seems like WNBA and Caitlin Clark and women's sports are going to keep Panini in the game, which is great. And to circle back to the quality control issues, hopefully that doesn't impact what they are focused on now, which is the women's sports. If the AI and the consistent issues and the gem rate going down, if that's going to keep happening, that's going to be disappointing. But they have a bright future with women's sports, and if they want to go all in on it and keep that momentum going, that would be great.
I agree, Lauren. They have the momentum. However, what concerns me is the Players Association, right? Mm-hmm. Fanatics will show up with a semi-load of money.
No semi. Just take the word semi out. It's just a load of money.
And the union will fold and throw them right under the bus.
I will say the WNBPA is very, I feel like, more outspoken than the NBPA, just to kind of compare, apples to another type of apple, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. They're very outspoken about a lot of different things they don't even have to be outspoken about. So I think that and like you said, money rolls up. Of course, why not? Why wouldn't they take it? But I do think they're a little bit more thoughtful in their players and the protection of their players. And I know with Unrivaled, the players got, a percentage of ownership, to some degree of the league. And that makes a huge difference. That gives them a say, that gives them control. It gives them a little bit more of a democracy to say what happens with my name, image, and likeness and this product. And
Yeah.
are we taking money from people that will then turn around and abuse us and use us as, some kind of like circus act? Or are they giving us this money because they believe in what we do and they want to treat us as, serious athletes? So I think, yeah, I would like to think they would resist a Fanatics money dump, but money talks, and if it does, it does. But I think that I think they have a little bit more concern about quality control
Yeah.
and the um yeah, and just the experience also of their players and their products. So.
Yeah.
A couple comments here. Warren kind of echoes me. Um, with being more vintage. I lost his comment here, but Warren's basically says he doesn't do modern any longer. He's more vintage. I'm like that. I do open modern sometimes. I don't want to, be disingenuous. Sometimes I'm even blessed and privileged to get to review a product from a company and that sort of thing. When I do that, I usually give away all those hits and what I open, especially on the hockey side. Um, comment here from Orlando. Very few printers can produce the card. Yeah, there's only a few that are capable of answering that sort of workload. So they sort of have them over the barrel. But again, Orlando, like Victor says, like have an on-site supervisor there overseeing that operation to make sure. Right, you already have people in charge of that, but just put one inside the plant itself, if you will. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if the printing company is kind of resistant to that, maybe you got to look at them like, hey, you don't want one person in there just making sure everything's going all right. Then what? Maybe we shouldn't be using you.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I would just find it really hard to believe that they wouldn't.
Yep. Ziggy says, I understand your point, Victor, but I understand Panini's and others. I did, while you were talking, I kind of wanted to try to find out how long the contract would. I couldn't get a definitive answer. I know they signed it in 2019, so here we are, 2025. Maybe it's a 10-year deal without knowing. We're 6 years in.
But I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm going to guess, again, don't quote me, but maybe a 10-year deal to 2029. We're in the 6th year of the deal because it was 2019. So maybe 8 or 10 years. I don't think it's 7 or 9. So we either got a couple more years or 4 more years left. I know it's not 20 years like Fanatics did with baseball and football and basketball. And to me, that's too long of a contract to sign with anyone. I've went off on a tangent many times already on that. I'm not going to do that again. A couple comments about the WNBA. Abel says 90% of Caitlin Clark's games will be nationally televised. Comment from my friend Ruben was that Aaron Rodgers texting you during the show. No, we're not friends, and we probably won't be friends. I'm not a huge Aaron Rodgers guy, but you listen, our quarterback room in Pittsburgh's so bad that he's sort of looked at as the savior. That's how bad our quarterback room is. Let's see what else we got. The owner Panini passed away recently, so the company's in flux. I think it's in flux. Besides the death, you're losing licensing, so a lot of stuff is.
Poor guy, he probably died because of stress.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep. And one last one here. Indiana's a basketball mecca, Fever and Pacers, not to mention college. That's a great segue into sort of our next topic, if you will, when we talk about Indiana. But, Tyrese Halliburton's hobby place, right? Indiana's up 2-0 now in the series against the New York Knicks. Even though I'm a New York City kid, I am not a Knicks fan, so my feelings aren't really hurt. And, if you watch the Knicks fans' reactions during the Celtics series, they already thought they were going to the finals. They kind of overlooked Indiana, and I'm wondering if the players are doing that. We saw what happened in Game 1. You blow a 9-point lead with under a minute left. That's never happened before in history. But Tyrese Halliburton traded from the Kings to the Pacers. Voted most overrated player. I like him as a player. I don't think he's the by any means or any stretch the best player in the NBA, but he's a good solid player. And we're seeing now what's going on here in the series. I'm assuming Victor's more of an Indiana fan than a Knicks fan, so he's probably not disappointed with what's going on there. And
I actually live closer to Chicago, so I get all the Bulls games.
Yeah.
But with that said, I'm really salty with the televised broadcast for NBA this year. It's very difficult to find a game. I've been able to see very few of the finals, and it's just like, man, this is just outrageous. They're streaming it in like 3 or 4 different places, and go figure, the service that I use doesn't really have, they show like 1 game a week, and it's like I'm missing all of it. It's really irritating, but I get mostly Bulls.
Yeah. Indiana's a good, listen, you make the playoffs and you're in the conference finals, you're a good team. I think the Knicks came in after the Celtics series win and just thought they were going to walk. I think they viewed the Celtics as a better team than the Pacers and said, well, we beat the Celtics, we should have no problem with the Pacers. And they were cashing their tickets to the NBA finals without knowing you have to do work, one more job to get there. And so I think we're seeing that Game 1 was a travesty. I was curious to see how they would react in Game 2, how they would recover. They've had a good first half and not a good second half again. So, but then again with Halliburton, I like him. I do sell some of his cards. There's a market for him. He's not, to me, he's not in the same space as an SGA and those type of guys, but he does play. He plays hard. Let's see, average about 18 points a game, 6 or 7 rebounds, and obviously he's a crucial piece to why they're in the conference finals. I'm going to go to Lauren here. Your kind of thoughts on all this?
Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton, it's been an interesting journey. I like the Pacers. I like Miles Turner a lot. 'Cause he's a Lego nerd, and I just find that very endearing that he's 8 feet tall and just like a huge Lego nerd. And so I've followed the Pacers from afar, for a few years, and I knew that they had a really solid team that was going to be, a problem when they got Pascal Siakam last year. That really changed things for them. That definitely took them up a notch. So I'm not surprised that they're giving the Knicks a run for their money, and that they're in the position they're in right now. I think that they're a very cohesive team. They work together really well, and they've been building towards this moment. And sometimes that's what matters most, is that it's your time, that all the stars are aligning. And the reason I kind of wanted to look at the NBA playoffs through the lens of Tyrese Halliburton is he was voted the most overrated, and people don't really pay attention to the smaller market teams like OKC and the Pacers. And as a Magic
And
fan,
that might be the final, Lauren. Right now, that's
yeah,
and
which would be
Oklahoma City
exciting, I
looks like
think.
world beaters right now. I don't know who's going to stop them. Again, you got to play the games, but right now they look like the team to beat, at least to the naked eye. They don't play the games on paper either. But if I had to bet on who wins the whole thing, my money would go on OKC today. Tomorrow maybe I'd say something else. But it's a great point, right? It's 2 small market teams. I'm sure the powers that be in the brass in the NBA offices would love to see, Knicks rather than Indiana. But they, if you don't believe the NBA's rigged, you don't get to maybe they rigged the draft lottery. They're not going to rig the games. And if you thought they were rigging the games and you saw what happened in Game 1 of the Knicks Indiana game, then I don't know what else, further evidence you need that they're not rigging games with a 9-point lead with a minute left in a big market team. So I'm not one of those conspiracy. The draft lottery, you might have me thinking about it, but not the games itself. Go ahead, Victor. I see you.
Here's a conspiracy theory. Okay. OKC, if you get 2 feet away from SGA, you're going to get called on a foul. Okay. The guy's untouchable. If your wind touches him, foul.
Right? Your fingernail
Jordan
just
rules.
like grazes his hairline. Boom, foul. Yeah.
Tyrese's dad is annoying. He might be the most overrated dad. I don't know about underrated player, but
I would argue John Morant's dad is far more annoying.
yeah, they should let his dad come to games if they make the finals. That would be terrible otherwise. And yeah, I hope not. I hope we don't see another episode like we saw already with that. It kind of takes away from the play on the court. Michael Ham says OKC all the way is shy of the future. Like I know people poke holes in his game, but he's a good player. He played, I like, they say the best availability or the best ability is availability. All these other guys taking off games and load management. I like dudes who play night in and night out and play well. You can say that about him. Victor makes a point where, he gets some call. It's kind of like Jordan rules. Maybe there's a little bit of that. We get the modern version of that with, SGA rules. And, Mike Petty says, I'm all in on Shane Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm buying every downtown I can find and throw it out.
No, you're
all
not.
my vendors. Yeah. I actually, so I have a box of basketball that I don't always go through very often. So I said, man, I better go through there and see what's in there. It's been a year or two, and I went in there, and I'm happy to say there was definitely some SGA rookies in there, optics and Donruss rated rookies. So it was a nice little find when you forget about. I'm sure we've all done that, right? You forget about a box and kind of go through it again, and a player that wasn't what he was at the time developed into a star. So I was fortunate. Yep. I didn't have any of those. I didn't pan out there, but OKC's on ABC tonight. Good chance to see the NBA MVP. So, and don't forget that. Orlando says, hey, don't forget about our Florida guys. Panthers looking to repeat. Man, as a New York Ranger fan, the Panthers stick in my craw. But listen, we didn't even make the playoffs, so at this point, it doesn't matter to me. So, speaking of grading, Stuke says, I have a shy rookie in the mail coming back from SGC. Got a 10. So there's so that'll skew the numbers a little bit back up there. But I like him. He's not into the 20 points a game range. I think he did have that 1 year. But listen, Indiana's not. Indiana's not where they are now without him. And you mentioned Lauren Pascal Siakam, another key cog. And that's a great team, right? I think that's more of a team rather than sort of a one-man kind of leads the pace. Any kind of before we kind of go to our last topic real quick, any last words on this one?
No, let's move on.
All right, so we know the Nationals going to be in Chicago this year, and then 2026 and 2027. But they also announced that the dealers are going to vote for the 2028 location, and it's going to be either Atlanta or Detroit. So it's going to be new place in 2028. And both of these cities haven't hosted one in a long time. If you ask me, I kind of would vote Atlanta. The South hasn't. Detroit's sort of still in that Midwest. I think the South hasn't had a national in some years, so it doesn't really matter to me. I don't have a vote, but I would pick Atlanta. What do you guys think? And do you have a preference? Same thing with chat room.
Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people want things to be closer to the Mississippi or even further west. Obviously, that's not going to happen with the national, so we need to like move past that. Atlanta's good because it's a hub. I think it's fairly easy for people to travel to Atlanta. Um, Atlanta has a lot of conference centers, and there's a lot of sports teams, and there's a lot to do. I'm in Florida, so it's the flight's much shorter or drive, like Orlando said. I haven't been to Detroit, period, end of sentence at all, so I don't know what the scene is there. I'm just glad that Atlantic City is not an option again because I did not super enjoy that one. I hate to say it, but I that was a little tough. And then Cleveland was okay. The parking situation was terrible. They all have their flaws, but if we're not going to be in Chicago, which seems to be kind of the sweetheart location when their air conditioning is working. I think it'd be interesting to have it in Detroit or Atlanta, but I think, like you said, Atlanta kind of moving towards the south a little more. That might be a little more accessible for people. So I like it in Chicago. I'd be okay with that. But
Victor, how far from? I know you're close to Chicago.
Yeah.
How far from Detroit are you? Is that still drivable or no?
Yeah, it's drivable. I'm about 4.5 hours away from Detroit. But
Okay.
everybody's gonna like choose their like whatever suits them, right?
right.
But to me,
That's why I like Atlantic City. I might be the only guy,
you're not
but
gonna lie, right?
I can drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Couple of things that come to my mind is I don't know if it's either or. I think Atlanta and Detroit are on the docket to be voted on along with other locations. I'm assuming.
Okay.
I'm thinking
I'm not sure. The way I read it, it was one of the two, but you
one of
could
the
be
two.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I
And then
think so.
ultimately, the dealers are obviously the ones that decide all of that, and I think that's why it's not at the West Coast because the dealers aren't just they're not going to go that far out, to do a show. But I don't know. Let's I would prefer Detroit uh, over the Atlanta. That's kind of where I'm at with it. But
Yeah, and I get it. You know what I mean? I would, like I just said, I'd pick Atlantic City or, Cleveland again. It's crazy. Cleveland's 5 hours and 5 hours, and Atlantic City's 5 hours and 15 minutes from me. So it's drivable.
yeah,
Chicago, great venue, not bagging the city or the venue or the show. It's just I have to fly in, and Victor's been nice enough to say, "Hey, I can mail him a box of some swag that don't have to bring on the plane. That'll save me a little headache and that sort of thing." But and again, I saw the West Coast comment, right? Listen, that would cost me a lot more money to make a West Coast trip.
yeah,
But to be fair, right, I would put myself in their place, right? I'm on the East Coast, but what if I lived in the West Coast and seeing all this? I would probably feel the same way as Gordon
sure.
does. Like, hey, what about us, right? I got to keep going to Chicago. I'll go all the way to the other coast to Atlantic City, Cleveland. I'd love to see it in the way, even though it would cost me more money to attend and all that fun stuff. In the spirit of fairness, I think they should have. West Coast is there's plenty of collectors and hobbyists there too, and dealers, I'm sure. I'd love to see it, whether it be Oregon, Washington State, or California, or even Arizona, right? You got a lot of options there. I think it's easy for me to play armchair, national guy, but I would love to see it, and I'd love to see it just move around the country,
Yeah.
so everyone gets a chance to attend.
Not me.
I know, well, Jesus, you go out your back door. It's like going on your deck, and there's like a giant card show. I get, and I don't fault you for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would say the same. I don't have it like the closest it is to me is that 5 hours. So that being said, at that point, it's taken me some time to get there, whether I drive or fly.
Yeah.
and it's still going to cost money. So let's try to be fair about it.
John,
If there was in Syracuse, which is a pipe dream, I would probably say keep it in Syracuse every year. But
yeah.
we know that's not going to happen.
John, the real question is this: is what I want to know. I want to know from the chat too. The real question is it too early to be talking about the national?
What, this year's or just the 2028?
No, this year's now. I'm starting to see content already for the national.
We're under triple digits in days if you're the countdown.
How many
guy.
days? How many days?
I'm, I'd have to look it up on my phone. Let me look it up.
Real quick.
It's going
'Cause
to be a train of content coming out, and I'm like, it's not even Memorial Day.
67. We're 67 days away.
All right.
I think you get to me. I don't start thinking about it until it gets into double digits, 90 and less. And obviously every day is a day close. But you know how content creation is. We're guilty. I'm guilty of it too. I'm not throwing anyone else just under the bus, right? It's the biggest, it's the Super Bowl of the hobby.
Really is.
Right?
Yeah.
We like when we it's a Super Bowl hobby. So when we're watching NFL, we're already talking about who might the Super Bowl matchup be in week 8 or 9 of the season, right? When you still got 8 weeks of regular season games and the playoffs haven't even started yet. I think we do that with the National, which is the Super Bowl of the hobby too. Mike Petty says 2,875 days to Detroit. So yeah, his money's on Detroit winning. He's more concerned.
I don't think the math is right on that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, listen, we're making plans. I'm already we have dates locked in. We know what day the PSA registry party is and where. So once those things start to be talked about and locked in, I think we heck, Victor, the minute this national's done, right? The countdown is going to say 364 days to the next one, and people are going to be talking about it, right?
Yeah, it's exciting. It really is.
Yeah, it is. I don't fault it. I don't, I may not watch a lot of too early, just because it's too early. And I try to wait as much as I can before I start doing my own content pertaining to it. But like a kid in a candy store, right? You get into those double digits. And around this time, you get under 75 days. 67 days is 2 months and a week, right?
It'll come back. It'll hit us very quickly. So
yeah, we're 9 weeks away. That's in the grand scheme of things. When you think of a 50, 2 weeks a year, we're it's not that far away. And so we unfortunately, if you don't like to talk, you're going to get it whether we like it.
Yeah, it just when everybody starts talking about it, the same thing, it just gets a little repetitive. I think.
Yeah, and Steven Sports MD says my office is 30 minutes away from the National. If anyone wants to use his CT scanner, so there you go, little side hustle from Steven MD, entrepreneurship.
There you go.
In its finest. So find out. Buy your packs or boxes at the National, and make an appointment with Stephen MD to see what you got in there without opening it. So Abel says he wears a shirt on Saturday that says pretty much broke. That's true, because it's usually by Saturday. I'm a late buyer. I kind of wait towards my last day or two.
Yeah.
And I try to not be that guy, and I tend to be that guy. Although last year I got my Tom Seaver rookie, I think it was Thursday or Friday, so a little sooner than traditionally speaking. So last year I did a better job of getting a couple cards earlier than Saturday. For me, I am going to be there Sunday, but when I fly anywhere, it's hard to get a flight to Syracuse on a Sunday. So a lot of times Saturday's my last day. So if I haven't bought much by Saturday and time is going through the hourglass, and I better hurry. So Foul Ball says he doesn't like grading and he doesn't like the National. He says National is a waste of money. I would rather. You know what, though? I don't disagree. I don't want to say it's a waste of money, but it is going to cost you money. And so I'm not. I don't want to poo-poo this point. This is not. This is a fair statement. If I didn't go to the National, I could probably spend, be honest with you, $4,000 more dollars on a card or cards, right? Because that's what, depending if I fly and hotel and rent a car in this case, all starts to add up. So I get that, but it's also probably the funnest week in the hobby.
Right. It's like me saying, like, well, I have TV at home. I'll watch the Super Bowl from my living room. I
Yeah,
can, and it's a great
yeah,
experience, but it's a different experience, like that. Sometimes the National is the only time we get to see our friends in person,
yep. It's the
and
hobby
groups of
reunion.
friends in person.
Yeah,
So
dinner. It's more than the cards. It's more than the
exactly.
show.
Yeah.
There's
It's
sporting
an event
events.
for everybody annually. We have it on our calendar. We're all on the
Yeah,
same page. It's just a different it's, some people skip Dallas shows or don't go or whatever. You go to your local show and, you have your different quadrants. This one, people fly in internationally from Hawaii, like there's all across the country. That's sometimes where I get to see my friends the one time
well,
that year.
well, in fairness to Foul Ball, he just said this: "I have no friends." So,
If you
all
went to
right,
the National, you might.
yeah,
You make
come
some.
to the National. We should get a GoFundMe and send Foul Ball to the National, and then everyone he might change his mind. I don't know if he's open to that, but I get that too, right? I don't, we're joking around, but I get it. If not everyone has the this discretionary income to make the
Mhm.
trip. I wasn't even sure I was going until a couple months ago to this year's National. So I get it. And you say, hey, if I listen, when I wasn't sure I was going, I'm like, all right, I can just buy some more cards. So I know exactly where Foul Ball's coming from with that. But like Lauren says, it's more than just a card show. It's going to dinner with folks. It's going to a White Sox, a Cubs game. It's hanging out after the show. If you're a trade night person, you got one every night. I know Victor goes. I go to the PSA party, and there are other parties as well. So it's that week you like we've talked about. It's that week you schedule every year because it's usually that last week in July and the front part of August. I tell my employer like, hey, I won't be at summer school for these 3 or 4 days.
Right.
Plan for that. So we kind of circled on our calendar and we look forward to it. And we try to go when we can. So if you don't, we'll miss you. We'll think about you for a little bit, and then we'll enjoy the festivities. And I get it. To each their own, right? There's no wrong or right answer.
Exactly.
It's your opinion or what situation you're in. So with that being said, we went a little overtime. That's okay. Any last words? I'll go, Victor. Got anything coming out you want to plug or that sort of thing?
Yeah, thanks for that, John. I will be having, not this weekend, but I'm hoping for next weekend, I will be doing a video. I typically do videos on a specific player, and I'll filter the fluff and kind of do like all of their true rookie cards. And they're by far the most popular videos on my channel. But I got one coming up. One video is in the queue, and we're going to be looking at the true rookie cards of none other than Caitlin Clark. So stay tuned for that.
Is she popular?
Oh my goodness.
She's okay.
I'm kidding. It's a joke. But I don't like I say that tongue in cheek, and there's probably someone like John doesn't know. Like I
Right.
get it. If you
Yeah.
don't know my humor by now, I don't know what else to
Right.
tell you. Lauren, how about you? Last final words.
No, I got to get back to stitching my card. It's been a while. I haven't written for anybody in a hot minute, so happy to be
Yeah.
back on Hobby Hotline so I can get back in the swing of things. But yeah, so looking
No,
forward to all the interviews that are coming up and the Caitlin Clark. I love the true rookie card conversation. So I love seeing, Victor present the information and then hearing people bicker. But every time I see somebody put a listing on eBay that says rookie, I'm like, not by Victor's standards. So maybe you should look at that. I'm very judgmental now. I'm very arrogant about it. So I'm looking forward to, and heading into the national, looking forward to seeing what everybody, has.
I'm gonna coin that the Victor Flints, the Victor influence. It's the Victor influence. So Stephen MD is says if you need to save money, you can all stay in Victor's new basement. So there you go, Victor. Get some cots, get some air mattresses. Yeah, it's not a trade night, a sleepover night in Victor's basement. He didn't know till just now, but he's got now you have 67 days to get that basement ready for all your new roommates that you're gonna have there. So, all right, folks, we will be back last week in May. Well, there is a Hobby Hotline next week, and then starting in June once again, the first and third Saturday. So we thank everybody. 67 days from the Nationals, start counting it down, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.